Welcome to Taxpayer Alert. This is another program where you have some good guests come to these sessions. This one, we're featuring Scott Kaufman, who is active with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. And Scott really knows what's going on. And keep your pencil and paper nearby, because we're going to tell you what the website is, that you can get more information and join the Taxpayer Association. Scott, welcome, and tell us how you get involved with this thing.
Well, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it's very easy. You just go on our website, www.hjta.org. HJTA.org. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association.
Okay.
.org.
Did you write that down? Okay. Now, so you've been involved with the Taxpayer Association for quite a while now, is that right?
Actually, no. I started last year. My predecessor, who was legislative director, was with them for 13-something years.
It was David?
Yeah, David, and then he moved on to private consulting. Because that's where the real money's at, not a nonprofit like us. Our money goes directly back into the mission and all those sorts of things, right? So.
Well, you have to substitute passion for money.
Yes, and that's fine with me. I really like what I'm doing, and working for the members, because we are a membership organization, as you mentioned. Yeah. And so, but yeah, this first year's been great. Kind of a trial by fire. The legislature is always up to something, but we're working with them and fighting them as much and as often as we need to.
Oh, that's good. Now. The items I would like to talk about, one of them is the new initiatives, that you're putting together a new initiative. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess I'm actually going to break some news on the program today, because I don't even think we put out a press release yet at the time of taping here. We filed a new initiative, a new ballot measure that would appear on the November 2022 ballot, and we're going to repeal the changes that Prop 19 made last year, in the November election last year. We're going to repeal those changes that they made to the intergenerational transfer. And I guess I always like to kind of explain what that means, because I don't think most people know what intergenerational transfer means. But in 1996, the voters, by I think something like 70% or more, passed Prop 58. And what Prop 58 said was that when we pass on, God forbid, it's a long time from now, but when we pass on and our children inherit our property, our home, they get to keep the base year assessed value. They get to keep your Prop 13 value. And they also get to take Prop 13 to other properties, up to $1 million in other properties, which could be a small business or family farm or something like that, right? Up to $1 million in that. So Prop 19 came along, and it did three things. It did a good thing, which was it increased the portability. So you can, when you move, you can take, if you're 55 or older, if you're disabled, or you're a fire victim, that your house burned down in one of these fires that we seem to be having more and more often now, you can take that, you can take your Prop 13 to your next home, which we think is a good thing. We've supported that in the past. It did that, and we think that's good. But it also changed the intergenerational transfer. Now, for your child to keep your Prop 13 assessed value, they have to move into the home within a year and claim it as their primary residence, and that $1 million on their property completely went away. The problem we have with that is that, life takes us many places. I'm from Oxnard in Ventura County. I live thousands, hundreds if not thousands of miles away from my home and my parents' home. And when I inherit that home, I'm clearly not going to be able to move into it, because my job is taking me to Sacramento. Right. So I'm going to get reassessed on that property when I inherit it. And they bought it in 1989, so as you can guess, the reassessment is going to be quite sizable, just on inflation alone. And I'm likely not going to be able to keep my family home, because I can't pay what's going to amount to another mortgage payment, right, and property taxes, and so I'll have to sell. Right. And that's just not something we want folks to have to do. We don't believe that the tax code should run people out of their family homes, right? That's not the purpose of the tax code, and it shouldn't be. So all of our initiative does is it just restores the intergenerational transfer back to the way it was under Prop 58. And I should mention also Prop 193. Prop 193 allows you to do the same thing, but from a grandparent to a grandchild if the parent is deceased.
It seems to make sense that people within the families can move properties as they without being penalized.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It seems to be a violation of property rights to hurt those people.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the tax code should be used to run people out of their properties, and that's what we think this does. And so we're hoping that the voters agree with us. And we've done all of our legwork on it and our polling, and it seems to poll fairly well. So we're optimistic that the voters are with us on this. But I guess we'll see in November 2022.
Okay, now that was news that you won't find anywhere else but Taxpayer Alert. The next item of discussion is housing bills, and those can be very hurtful to property rights.
Yeah, I would say, and I think I said, last time I was on your program, that the legislature has been fairly good this year. They're never completely good, but they've been fairly good, and I think some of that has to do kind of, with the surplus and what's going on with the recall. And so there haven't been a lot of kind of really controversial bills that have come through. The attempts to create a single-payer healthcare system failed. Attempts to raise the income tax rates failed, and those just really bad for taxpayer bills have largely failed. But these two housing bills, SB 9 and 10, are causing a lot of heartburn for folks, especially in the suburbs. We're hearing it from them. And what they do, well, what SB 9 does, SB 9 allows someone, both of them, SB 9 and 10, rezone single-family zoning statewide. It basically ends single-family zoning statewide. And what they specifically do, SB 9 would allow anyone on any single-family lot to build 2 duplexes and potentially 2 ADUs on that, so a total of 4 properties. Accessory dwelling units, okay. Granny flats, I think they're commonly called. So it would allow people to take what is now a single-family home and turn it into 4.
Right.
And it would and SB 10 would allow up to a 10-unit apartment building on any single-family zoned lot now. And obviously, we have issues with the local control aspect of that. We don't think Sacramento should be making zoning decisions like they're doing with these bills. SB 10 also avoids HOA and covenants. So even if you're in an HOA or a covenant community, that might not even protect you from these upzoning bills. But there's also tax implications that we're concerned about, because anytime you're playing with uses for zoning uses and property, you're talking about the value of that land, because value is often assessed by highest and best use.
Right. And
while Prop 13 will protect you in your home now, when that home is sold, when there's or otherwise a change of ownership,
yeah,
we're worried that folks are going to get potentially slapped with a very large property tax bill, because the assessor's going to say, yes, it's a single-family home, but it's zoned for up to a 10-unit apartment, and a 10-unit apartment is worth much more than your home.
Yeah.
And we're going to assess you on what the value of the land could be as a 10-unit apartment.
Right.
It could be very, very difficult for people, and we always think that the goal of creating more housing should be about creating more home ownership, and I just don't see these bills doing that. I worry that the opposite could happen when people are hit with these property tax bills that they simply can't pay on top of their mortgages and on top of all the bonds and other fees that go along with home ownership.
Yeah, it seems like people move to a rural area, they want to have a little bit of space where they can have maybe a chicken or 2, or plant some tomatoes and have a little bit of dirt around, where they wouldn't have that in an apartment complex. And then to come and say, well, we changed the use of your land. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, and no one's forced. And I should say, to be fair, no one's forced to do this, but
right.
But obviously they can. They will be allowed to. And with SB 9, the locals can't say anything. SB 10, there is a little local control, but a 10-unit apartment coming up in your single-family neighborhood is still a concern.
Yeah.
Because it affects your property value too, right? Obviously, people have a right to do what they want on their property, but it also affects your property, and folks should have a say in that.
It seems like there's an attempt to change the character of the American experience, where you would do away with the suburban areas and focus in high density areas with transportation to work and that sort of thing, And in some areas it works pretty good naturally because the market creates it. But in other areas it's not really suitable.
I agree.
So that's SB 9 and SB 10.
Yep.
And you got to be sure to vote those down.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'll say that both of those bills passed the Assembly. SB 10 passed the Assembly on Thursday of last week, and SB 9 passed the Assembly today. They go back to the Senate for concurrence, but that's where they came from. So we're not optimistic, but you know, the governor should be, as it comes to the governor's desk, he should be weighing the recall and the dissatisfaction the voters have with him, and maybe think about these bills long and hard before he signs them.
Oh, that's right. This is a Senate bill, and this is not a initiative.
No, these are both in the legislature right now, and they're going through their last hurdle, which is going back through the Senate one more time.
So it'll take an initiative to overturn those if they're passed by the legislature.
Or another bill out of the legislature, but I wouldn't hold my breath.
Yeah, you'd have to have a sea change,
Yes.
which could occur with a recall.
Correct.
You know, a lot of people are fed up with high taxes.
It's very true.
Okay, so the next item is the activity in the legislative activity, and you get a grasp of it. A lot going on there.
Yeah, I mean we're in kind of the last weeks. You know, they're constitutionally required to stop on September 1st. Although there's some wiggle room there, they can actually still pass some bills until September 10th. But for the most part, the Constitution requires everything to be done by September 1st. So they've got days left, and they've still got hundreds of bills that they're potentially going to be voted on. A lot of those won't make it out, and we're usually very pleased with that. Often we win some and we lose some. In California, but I usually weigh our wins on the things that didn't get passed rather than the things that do get passed.
Oh, it's just important.
Yeah. And so, so we're optimistic that most of the stuff that we find most concerning won't make it through. As I've already mentioned, kind of the top line bills that a lot of which that we were most concerned about didn't go very far at all this year, and hopefully they won't move in the last days. You never know with the legislature and the Gutman process that lets them to take a bill that lets them basically resurrect a dead bill by just amending a bill that's currently alive and cutting out everything in it and putting the other bill in. And then it's that bill, and it's
that's kind of dishonest.
It absolutely is. It's absurd, but they can do it, and they do very often. I mean, there's a bill that we just sent a letter on last week, AB 826, that would allow county pension systems, the county ones, not the state, not CalPERS, but the county pension systems of, gosh, there's 20 or something of them, I think, would allow them basically to pension spike again on some things that were outlawed. Jerry Brown, to his credit, did a big pension reform, PEPRA, a couple, now almost 10 years ago, I think. But they forced the pension systems to stop doing certain things that allowed them to inflate the value of their pensions, right? This bill would allow them to consider in-kind benefits like health care and those sorts of things as income for the purpose of their pension. We see it as pension spiking. I'm currently in an argument with the authors of this bill's office, who they say it's not pension spiking, but anytime you're artificially increasing the value of a pension, to me, is pension spiking. And that has unfunded liability concerns and can cost cities and counties a lot of money.
Right, and usually not reported.
Very true.
What efforts is Jarvis Taxpayer Association doing to address that?
We've sent a letter. We're talking with the author's office. Obviously, we've also sent letters to our fellow taxpayer associations in the counties where they have these pension systems, like Ventura County, Orange County, and a couple of others. They're also concerned. We've taken to the media as best we can. John Capal, who writes my boss, the president of HJTA, who writes a weekly column for the Southern California News Group there in Southern California, opined on this a couple weeks ago. So if folks want to read more, they can go check that out on the Orange County Register or one of their websites. I think there's 16 newspapers in that news group. But yeah, I mean, we're getting the word out there. Obviously, I'm the lobbyist for Howard Jarvis. I know that's a bad term, but I like to think that I'm the lobbyist for the taxpayer, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's a little different than other lobbyists, right?
Yeah.
But I've sent a letter. I've expressed our displeasure at it to them, and people in the Capitol take us seriously. We're the largest taxpayer association in the state, and when we cry foul,
Yeah.
people listen.
Yeah, and you're not political. In other words, a lot of Democrats are members of Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association.
Yes, even Democrats own property and
Yeah.
don't want their property taxed out from under them. So
Right.
we have a lot of members, and sometimes when we take a position that's kind of on the more conservative or Republican side of an issue, we hear from them. We get those calls from our Democratic members saying, "I can't believe you did this," and we're like, "Well, we think it's in the best interest of the taxpayer. Everything we do, we kind of keep that mission of protecting Prop 13 and doing what we think is in the best interest of the taxpayer."
Yeah. Our taxpayer group also is really concerned with the Constitution and the violation of the Constitution's just so widespread, particularly the requirement to protect the rights to life, liberty, and property.
Mm-hmm.
Many people have forgotten about that. The schools completely. You will not learn about that in the schools. But that's one of the most important things about a free society, is people having the rights to life, liberty, and property. So fundamental, at least in our opinion.
I would agree with that, and I would say in our opinion too. Obviously, as the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, Howard Jarvis is who did Prop 13, right? So
Right.
Property is very important to us as an organization, and our goal is to protect the property rights of every Californian. So we're doing what we can. The legislature doesn't always let us do that, but we try our best.
Now, Howard Jarvis, tell us a little bit about Howard Jarvis. He's not around anymore, I take it?
He's not.
He passed away.
Yes, many years ago.
And how did that get started?
It just, I don't know if you've ever seen the film Network, but there's a great scene in Network where he says he's mad as heck. I'm censoring myself, but mad as heck, and he's not going to take it anymore, right? And I think that's kind of what Howard Jarvis, what happened with Howard Jarvis. He was a small businessman. He owned some apartment complexes. And, in the 70s, with inflation the way it was, people, especially older people, were being taxed out of their homes by the property tax system.
Right.
From one year to the next, the property tax system would grow. Your property tax payments would grow to like a second mortgage payment, and people people on fixed incomes just couldn't budget for that.
Right.
And it changed so dramatically. It wasn't necessarily based on any number that you could calculate. A lot of times it was that the locals, because property taxes are local, the local taxing authority would sit down and go, well, we have a $20 million budget shortfall this year, so we're going to raise property taxes this much to cover it. And yeah, it kept their budget balanced, but also people couldn't predict their property taxes, and it could be a real shock to folks.
Right.
And so Howard Jarvis came along, and he tried this many times. In 1978, when Prop 13 was passed, was not the first time he tried to bring Prop 13. He tried several times and was not successful. But he finally did in 1978, and I think what the catalyst there was, citizens, homeowners had been asking the state legislature to do something about this because people were losing their homes, and once again, especially older folks.
Right.
And the legislature's idea was, their solution was that they were going to put a lien on your home. You didn't have to pay your property taxes if you couldn't afford them, but we were going to put a lien on your home, and then we were going to essentially seize your house when you died. And that just sent people to the ramparts. I mean, confiscating property, right? The state confiscating property just wasn't going to fly in a free society.
Right.
And so I think that was I think that's what propelled Howard Jarvis and Prop 13. It passed overwhelmingly in 1978, and the voters have been very protective of it ever since. There's been many attempts to water it down, and those have largely failed. The biggest one recently was Prop 15 last year to split off commercial property from Prop 13. It failed dramatically, and it failed in what a lot of folks think was probably the most positive election for the other side. They thought that election was probably the one shot they had to get at Prop 13, and they failed.
Yeah.
And so we're hopeful that the message has been sent again to Sacramento and to anyone who wishes to attack Prop 13, that it's off limits. It's the third rail of California politics. Jerry Brown himself said that.
I understand that Prop 13 has influences beyond California. there are other states that are doing similar things.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and Art Laffer was there of the famous Laffer curve and the Reagan tax cuts.
Yeah.
And he gave credit to Howard Jarvis for being one of the sparks of the tax revolt that put Reagan in the White House, right? And we started it, but New York has a version of Prop 13, and a number of other states have property tax limiting measures on their ballots. And it's funny too, even today. A lot of folks are fleeing the state because it's just simply so unaffordable, and they're moving to places like Idaho and other states that don't have a Prop 13, and they're getting their property tax bills, and they're calling us and saying, "How do we get Prop 13 in Idaho?"
Right.
And still, I think the tax burden is still much lower in Idaho, but property taxes. I mean, on property taxes, California is one of the highest, most tax states in every category except property taxes. And in property taxes, even with Prop 13, we're in the middle of the pack. We're not even particularly low on property taxes.
Right.
But it's still lower than a lot of these states. And I don't think people realize how good they have it on their property taxes until they move out of state and get that property tax bill in Texas or Idaho or Florida or those places like that.
I'm surprised Florida is pretty sensitive to property rights issues. And I'm surprised that they don't have something similar to Prop 13 there.
I don't believe they do off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that their taxes are higher. But don't quote me on that, even though we're on TV. So people can quote me all they want. They're going on Wikipedia right now to prove me wrong. But yeah, especially in states that don't have income taxes, like Texas and Florida. Obviously, they need to generate revenue somehow if they're not doing it on the income taxes, and you'll see that property taxes are often higher. In Texas, I know that to be true. In Florida, I'm not sure, but I know Texas for a fact. We get a lot of calls from folks in Texas that don't realize how good they had it on property taxes. No other tax in California, because everything else, gas tax, income tax, all the other taxes are sales tax are too high. But in property taxes, we're in the middle. We're not great, but we're not terrible.
See,
thanks to Prop 13.
I guess sales tax was the one tax that might be the most fair because it's not punitive.
It's at least user based, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a conscious decision to buy something, right?
Right.
It's not penalizing you for having a job or owning property, right? Which
It's part of the price, right?
Yeah. I've always found income taxes and property taxes to be particularly offensive, just because they're taxing success and frankly doing what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to have a job, you're supposed to work hard, you're supposed to buy a home and provide for your family.
Right.
And there's a tax for that, You're taxed for having a job through your income tax, you're taxed for owning property through property taxes, and I don't think people should be taxed for doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you're right. John Capel been on our show, and he did a lot for us to get started in our own taxpayer association. We kind of consider him our mentor, and so we every chance we get, we try to promote the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, while at the same time promoting ourselves.
Of course.
Yeah. And he mentioned John does write some interesting articles on the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association website,
Mm-hmm.
which is
hjta.org. hjta.org.
.org.
And if you can't remember that, just remember that it's the abbreviation of our name, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association.
And it's an org.
Yes.
All right, that's good. Well, we have 5 minutes
Okay.
to touch on some of the items that you think that we probably should remember more than other ones. And what might those be?
Well, I just kind of go back over what we talked about. Obviously, I think the initiative that we're filing is very important because Howard Jarvis is we're a small but mighty organization, right? We're not. I mean, our member, we're funded by 250,000 people that give us $15 a year, so
Right.
we're not huge. I think we are.
Did you hear that? $15 a year.
Yes. So we're a small but mighty organization, and we're going to need the help from everybody we can to help collect signatures, to raise money, to put our initiative on the ballot. Because just because we file an initiative doesn't mean it shows up on the ballot, right? You got to collect signatures, and you've got to raise money.
Right.
And those I think that we're going to try and do as much with volunteers as we can. We think there's a lot of support for this in the community. It's the #1 thing we get calls about is restoring the intergenerational transfer that Prop 19 took away.
Right.
And so it's going to be a struggle, and we're going to work at it. But I think we can do it, and with help from regular folks and taxpayer associations. And you mentioned we can't do what we do without taxpayer associations like yours at the county level, right? We try to be everything to everyone, but we can't. And so it's always nice to know that we can reach out to groups like yours or any taxpayer group in another place and help and have you help us, help you best we can. I think it makes us stronger that we're working together and relying on each other.
Yeah, I agree. You've got a network, and I think the Caltax is another
Yes.
part of that, and they do some pretty good work as well.
That they do.
One of the things that is a topic now is honest elections, and what does the Howard Jarvis think about honesty in elections?
It's hard to say. It's hard to track all these sorts of things. I mean, obviously there's a bill going through the legislature right now, which is AB 37. That's a bill that would make permanent the vote by mail system that they did during COVID. I know that's something that a lot of people are watching closely out of concern about the potential for fraud that comes from an all mail ballot, all mail election system. We're obviously watching that too because thanks to Prop 13 and Prop 218, the people have a right to vote on taxes in this state, so election integrity is very important to us.
Yeah.
We want to make sure the vote is free and fair, and we'll keep watching best we can, but the deck is stacked against us in the state legislature and the Secretary of State's office, but we do best we can.
Oh, that's a good thing. What do you think would be the most important thing for those that are watching this show now that are property owners to be involved with?
Well, I think your organization, our organization, obviously we'll keep rallying the troops and keeping folks up to date as much as possible. But I think I would also say, don't give up hope is an important thing. Just
don't give up hope.
In general.
Well,
a lot of people are fleeing the state because of the tax system, and I'm a 5th generation Californian. My great grandmother was born in Lincoln, Placer County, and I don't want to leave, and so stay with us and keep fighting.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, Scott Kaufman of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, it was so good to have you as a guest, and thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert.